In my past life, I had been married to my husband for 10 years when he fell in love with my cousin. In order to marry her, he orchestrated a scheme where I was assaulted by mountain bandits, using that as an excuse to divorce me. He then conspired with my cousin to frame my father. My parents were exiled and died of illness on the road. My younger brother, who once had a bright future, was falsely accused and thrown into prison, tortured until he died a tragic death behind bars. As for me, they hired someone to murder me. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the 5th year of my marriage to Fu Chen. At that moment, he had just finished playing the hero, saving my cousin Lin Ruoyun, who had come to the capital to seek refuge with my father, and brought her to see me. Their story was exactly the same as in my previous life. Fu Chen had supposedly come across Lin Ruoyun being harassed by thugs on his way home and rescued her. In my past life, I hadn't thought much of it. But this time, with a different mindset, I noticed the way Lin Ruoyun looked at Fu Chen. There was unmistakable affection in her eyes. So, she had already fallen for him at that time. Lin Ruoyun affectionately looped her arm around mine and cooed sweetly, "Sister, it's been so long since I've seen you. I've missed you so much. I just want to stick to you every day." Before I could respond, Fu Chen eagerly chimed in. "Perfect timing then. You can stay here at the residence and keep Azzy company." Judging by his attitude, Fu Chen had probably already developed feelings for Lin Ruoyun. I stared at them in silence, saying nothing. Seeing that I didn't speak, Fu Chen shot Lin Ruoyun a quick glance, pretending it was unintentional. Lin Ruoyun immediately softened her voice and continued her sweet talk, trying to coax me. I sneered inwardly, but kept my face composed. Suppressing my hatred, I smiled and said, "Then Ruoyun, do stay." The joy in Lin Ruoyun's eyes and the smirk Fu Chen couldn't hide reminded me painfully of my past life. Back then, I had no idea about the affair between Fu Chen and Lin Ruoyun. I treated her like a real sister, showering her with care. Until one day, Fu Chen tricked me into going to a temple outside the city to pray, where I encountered a gang of mountain bandits. They killed my maid, a Tao, and forced me to the ground. Barely clinging to life, I dragged my battered body back to the Fu residence over the course of an entire day and night. What greeted me was the wedding decor that hadn't yet been taken down. The bright red double happiness characters pierced my eyes and tore at my heart. A servant at the gate recognized me and rushed inside to report. Moments later, it wasn't just Fu Chen who appeared, but also my cousin Lin Ruoyun, who was supposedly back in her hometown. She was dressed like a new bride, clinging shyly to Fu Chen's side, her gaze full of scorn and triumph as she looked at me. Fu Chen didn't even ask what had happened to me. There was no concern for my injuries, no hint of pity, just a cold stare, as if he had expected it all along, filled with nothing but disgust and contempt. "Lindsay," he said, "you actually had the nerve to come back alive? Were you trying to embarrass me on purpose?" I stared at the scene before me in disbelief. I couldn't recognize the man who had once cherished me so dearly. Now his cold indifference cut me to the core. Perhaps tired of my shock, Fu Chen threw a divorce letter at me. "Get out. Don't let me see your face again." Lin Ruoyun walked up to me with a silk handkerchief covering her nose. "Sister, what incredible luck you have to survive an attack by mountain bandits." That was the moment I finally realized everything had been a setup. I stumbled back to the Lin family estate in a daze, only to find the main gates sealed with an official decree. The entire Lin family had been found guilty of corruption and exiled. My brother had been accused of colluding with enemies and thrown into prison, reported by none other than Fu Chen. Overnight, my world collapsed. I became the daughter of a disgraced official, wanted by the authorities, and was eventually sent to the Bureau of Courtesans, forced to serve men. Everything happened so fast. Not long after, my parents and brother died on the road during exile. I had originally planned to endure at the Bureau, biding my time for revenge. But Lin Ruoyun didn't stop there. She sent someone to assault and kill me. I died, full of hatred and resentment. Thankfully, I've come back to life, returned to 5 years ago. Now, I still have time to change everything. Lin Ruoyun had a forceful personality and always sought to come out on top. Someone like her would never willingly settle for being a concubine. She would no doubt secretly engage in an affair with Fu Chen, coax him into resenting me, just like in the previous life, working with him to bring down the Lin family, driving me out of the Fu household. In the end, she would marry into the Fu family with full honors as the legal wife. Lin Ruoyun's birth mother had been a concubine, and the last thing she ever wanted was to follow in her mother's footsteps. But the more she wanted to avoid that fate, the more I was determined to humiliate her with it. Half a month later, Fu Chen would be attending a banquet hosted by a high-ranking official. That night, he would get completely drunk. That same day, I had plans to go out with a close friend and would not be home. When I returned, Fu Chen's attitude toward Lin Ruoyun had become noticeably more intimate. I suspected that by then, they had already crossed the line. All that love me, love my kin nonsense was nothing but a cover for their flirtation. This time, I would play along with their game. I maintained a courteous facade with them for 2 weeks, biding my time for the banquet. That morning, I told them I was going out with a friend and left the residence. But I didn't actually go sightseeing. I had booked a private room at a tea house and waited there all day. Leaning by the window with a drink in hand, I sipped my wine as a Tao approached to report. "Madam, as instructed, I've informed the household that you won't be returning tonight." "Good," I replied. All I had to do now was wait. I spent the entire evening drinking alone. As the wine kicked in, my thoughts wandered, inevitably returning to my past life. Fu Chen and I had been married young. I was 16 when we wed, and now it had been 5 years. The sweet moments during those years were real. Fu Chen had truly doted on me back then, so much so that I believed he'd love me forever. Unfortunately, I was just too naive. Late into the night, a Tao came again. "Madam, you were right." Lin Ruoyun brought sobering soup to the official. I saw her add something into it. I didn't need to guess what kind of drug it was. I let out a cold laugh. "Got it." Then I dumped the rest of my wine on the floor and sneered. May they enjoy their night together. I spent the night sleeping in the private room. At dawn, I slipped back into the Fu residence through the rear gate, unnoticed by anyone. I brought with me a box of snacks, ones you could only get from outside the city, and went to find Fu Chen. As expected, I found Fu Chen and Lin Ruoyun lying naked together. I let go of the food box, letting it crash to the floor. The loud noise startled the two in bed. "Husband," I said, my tone cold. "If you wanted to take in a concubine, you could have just said so. Why go out of your way to humiliate me like this?" Fu Chen rubbed his eyes and looked at me, stunned for a second before scrambling to get up. "Azzy, I can explain." I acted heartbroken and questioned him, asking why he would do this. Lin Ruoyun froze. She hadn't expected me to return so soon. According to her plan, even if I heard something and rushed back from outside the city, the earliest I could have arrived would be noon. Realizing she'd been exposed, she immediately burst into tears and tried to act pitiful. "Sister, it's not what it looks like." "Oh," I said flatly. "Then what is it?" "Last night, I brought sobering soup to brother-in-law, but he was so drunk he mistook me for you, and then, where's A Chung?" I asked. "Why were you the one bringing the soup?" A Chung was Fu Chen's personal servant. He normally handled all these sorts of things. My words snapped Fu Chen out of his daze, and he suddenly caught on. "A Chung! A Chung!" A Chung hurried in and dropped to his knees. "Master, I was wrong. I didn't think it would turn out like this. Last night, I was supposed to bring the soup, but Miss Lin stopped me. She said the madam had instructed her to take care of you, so I handed the soup over to her." Lin Ruoyun was still crying. "Since I came to the residence, both sister and brother-in-law have treated me like family. Last night, with sister away, I just wanted to look after brother-in-law for her. I didn't think it would end up like this." She cried, and I cried too. Fu Chen hurried to comfort me. "Azzy, this is all my fault. I shouldn't have drunk so much. It's all on me." I pounded his chest through my tears and sobbed. "You're lying. On our wedding night, you were drunk and lay beside me fully clothed. You told me that a drunk man couldn't do that kind of thing. So that was all a lie, wasn't it? Fu Chen stiffened, his eyes darkening as he looked at the bowl of sobering soup on the table. He cast a cold glance at Lin Ruoyun and ordered, "Acheng, go find out what was in that soup." "Yes, master," Acheng replied. Lin Ruoyun's face instantly turned pale. Her fingers clenched the quilt tightly as she stared at me with a deathly glare. It didn't take long for Acheng to identify the drug in the soup, and they even found the leftover aphrodisiac in Lin Ruoyun's room. Fu Chun hurled the medicine at her with a fierce throw. "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Watching Fu Chen's angry outburst felt almost laughable. Sure, Lin Ruoyun had drugged him, but that didn't mean he wasn't willing. This whole act was just for show, put on for my benefit. Lin Ruoyun bit her lip and knelt, crying like a delicate flower in the rain as she confessed her feelings, that she had always loved Fu Chen. She claimed that drugging him was just a foolish act driven by love. Her tears were soft and pitiful, and with just a few words, she tried to paint her scheme as nothing more than affection. And Fu Chen, he was already starting to soften. I sneered silently, then spoke. "This isn't the time to argue over this. What's done is done, and someone must take responsibility. Ah, Chun, why don't you take Ruoyun in as a concubine?" "No, no." They both spoke in unison. Fu Chen stepped forward and took my hand. "Azzy, I already have you. How could I take a concubine?" Lin Ruoyun chimed in with a falsely sincere tone. "Sister, how could I steal your husband from you?" These two, one pretending to be full of emotion, the other claiming not to want anything, were the same people who had plotted to destroy my entire family. I let my tears fall and said, "Then what other choice do we have? You've already taken Ruoyun's innocence. Do you expect her to marry someone else now? That would ruin her reputation. She's my cousin. How could I bear to see her suffer like that?" Fu Chen gently wiped my tears away. "Don't cry, Azzy. If this is what you want, then I'll do it." But Lin Ruoyun wasn't ready to give up. "Sister, even though I have feelings for brother-in-law, I truly don't wish to come between you two. You've treated me so well. How could I ever wrong you? Sister, if it really comes to it, I won't marry. I'll stay by your side and serve you, to repay your kindness." She cried pitifully, her words heartfelt and touching. But I knew better. Last life, I had never treated her badly, and yet she still led me to a brutal death. Matching her tear for tear, I sobbed. "But what can we do now? What's done is done. Bringing you into the household is the only option left. If you truly love Ah Chen, then I'll support you." Then I paused, as if struck by sudden realization, and added sadly, "Or do you mean to say you'll only come into this house if I give up my position as the main wife?" As soon as I said that, Fu Chen's gaze turned sharp as he looked at Lin Ruoyun. "It's settled," he said coldly. "I'll take you in as a concubine soon. The Fu family will take responsibility. You drugged me, and I'm only allowing this because of Azzy's kindness." Lin Ruoyun froze, her face stiff. She tried to speak, but Fu Chen cut her off. "Azzy is already being generous by letting you be a concubine. If not for her, I'd be pressing charges. You should know, if word of your drugging me reached the authorities, the consequences would be dire." The truth was, Fu Chen wasn't completely under her spell, at least not yet. Her repeated refusals had finally stirred his suspicion. If Lin Ruoyun kept resisting, Fu Chen might actually abandon her. She had no room left to choose. The scandal of drugging and sleeping with Fu Chen had spread through the entire residence. She had no other way out. She could only become a concubine. I saw the flash of hatred in her eyes, her pale face drained of spirit, a storm of despair, anger, and humiliation surging within her. But she still had to swallow her pride and kneel to thank me. And I felt immensely satisfied. In the end, Lin Ruoyun followed in her mother's footsteps. The title of concubine would be a thorn in her heart forever. Even in her dreams, she'd wake up to the sting of it, her chest tight with pain. And this was just the beginning. After Lin Ruoyun was brought into the residence as a concubine, I treated her even better than before. So well, in fact, that the servants began whispering behind my back, saying how kind-hearted I was. to be so generous to someone who had tried to steal my husband. That was exactly the result I wanted. In my previous life, Fu Chun had sided with Lin Ruoyun precisely because I hadn't caught them in the act. Lin Ruoyun had claimed she didn't want to come between us, delaying her entry into the household as a concubine and even pretending to keep her distance from him. Men are weak like that, easily swayed by a woman who appears gentle and self-sacrificing, someone who seems willing to suffer rather than cause conflict. Fu Chen felt guilty for touching her without giving her a proper title, and that guilt made him more susceptible to her manipulation. But this time, I not only exposed their affair, I also revealed that Lin Ruoyun had drugged him. That alone was enough to shatter Fu Chen's pity and affection for her. I didn't care whether Fu Chen would be fooled by her again. I had already decided to divorce him, just not yet. Before that happened, I would make sure to return every ounce of the pain I suffered in my past life. Men love understanding women. So, I acted the part, considerate, accommodating, always putting him first. In doing so, I left no room for Lin Ruoyun to perform her little charade. The better I treated Lin Ruoyun, the more guilty Fu Chen felt toward me. Before long, Lin Ruoyun started to panic. She somehow found a folk remedy and managed to get pregnant with Fu Chen's child. With the child, Fu Chen's heart leaned more and more toward her. She became increasingly arrogant, flaunting his favoritism both openly and behind my back. But how long could she really flaunt it? Everything was within my calculations. In my past life, she killed my child, so of course I had to let her experience the same kind of pain. Pretending to be agitated by her provocations, I started fighting with Fu Chen every few days, which only made him grow more annoyed with me. Seeing her plan working, Lin Ruoyun became bolder. She urged Fu Chen to confront me, forcing me to send her all sorts of expensive supplements and delicacies for her pregnancy. She wanted them. I was more than happy to oblige. I sent her all the best things, only they weren't supposed to be consumed together. But Lin Ruoyun didn't care. She treated the supplements like trophies and devoured them all. Overdoing the supplements actually made her weaker instead of stronger. I tried to advise her, but she wouldn't listen. Instead, she claimed I was jealous of her because I hadn't been able to get pregnant for so long.
How could that be?
I simply didn't want her to damage herself too quickly and ruin the show before it truly began. In my last life, she caused me to miscarry and destroyed my entire family. I intend to return it all to her, one by one. In the capital, there are 2 rare beauty products, Jade Beauty Cream and Jade Glow Wine. Each one on its own is excellent for enhancing beauty, but when used together, their properties conflict, harmful for infertile women and causing miscarriage in those who are pregnant. Jade Beauty Cream was a new luxury item from outside the palace, not yet widely used among the noble ladies inside. Jade Glow Wine, on the other hand, was incredibly rare. Aside from royal banquets, it was nearly impossible to come by for common families. In my previous life, this interaction between the 2 substances only became widely known because a favored consort in the palace used both to maintain her looks and ended up miscarrying as a result. As of now, very few people know the truth behind this. Jade Beauty Cream is a prized commodity, but with Fu Chen's power and wealth, obtaining it wasn't difficult. I humbled myself and apologized to Fu Chen, coaxing him into getting it for me. Of course, I knew from the start that the cream would never make it into my hands. Lin Ruoyun, being pregnant, was undoubtedly worried that her beauty might fade. Once she heard about this miraculous product, she wouldn't let it go. And indeed, Fu Chen lied to me, saying he couldn't get the cream. Yet the very next day, Lin Ruoyun smugly came to show off the Jade Beauty Cream Fu Chen had given her. I played my part and went to argue with Fu Chen just as she wanted. Once again, Lin Ruoyun treated something stolen from me as a victory prize. She wanted Fu Chen to grow disgusted with me, but the time wasn't right yet. I wouldn't let her win so easily. So I swallowed my disgust and humbled myself again before Fu Chen. I cried and apologized, saying it was my fault for being too narrow-minded, but that I only acted that way out of fear that he didn't care for me anymore. Fu Chen, moved by guilt, sent me many fine gifts to make it up to me. He enjoyed the two of us fighting over him. And that was exactly what I needed. I wanted him to believe I still loved him, to lower his guard. Now that the Jade Beauty Cream had made it into Lin Royun's hands, all that remained was the Jade Glow wine. The palace banquet arrived soon enough. By tradition, officials would bring their wives or children, rarely ever a concubine. But Fu Chen and Lin Royun were in the throes of passion. All it took was a bit of pouting from her, and he gave in. To appease me, he even sent gifts, hoping I'd agree to let Lin Royun attend. Of course, I didn't refuse. Lin Royun insisted on riding in the same carriage as Fu Chen, while I traveled in a separate one. When we arrived at the palace gates, Fu Chen carefully helped Lin Royun out of the carriage. The two of them looked like a deeply devoted couple, while I seemed like nothing more than a bystander. At the banquet, wine was served. Knowing Lin Royun always loved to compete with me, I kindly reminded her, "Sister, you're pregnant. It's best not to drink." She froze for a second, then deliberately poured herself a cup and drank it. "Sister, there's no need to worry about me. Ah Chun said this wine is good for health and beauty. A few more cups won't hurt." After speaking, she downed several more glasses, clearly provoking me. "Go on, drink up, you fool." I had no interest in playing the doting wife at the table. I was too busy observing the emperor's 3 sons. Just then, the stage was featuring a performance, tigers jumping through flaming hoops. Somehow, one of the tigers lost control and charged toward the guests. Panic broke out instantly. As I tried to dodge, someone shoved me hard from behind, sending me crashing to the ground. The tiger came straight for me. Just as it lunged, an arrow pierced its neck, followed by a blade stabbing into its side. The tiger let out a fierce roar, then collapsed to the floor unmoving. I was still in shock, frozen in place, until a hand reached down and pulled me to my feet. It was one of the Imperial Guards who had saved me just in time. He said nothing, but his gaze drifted meaningfully to one side. I followed his line of sight, to Lin Royun. She was being protectively held in Fu Chen's arms, like a beloved wife, as if she were the one he truly cherished. I had no time to concern myself with Fu Chen's actions. Thanks to the guard's silent cue, I realized it was Lin Royun who had pushed me moments earlier. I steadied myself, thanked him calmly, and showed no hint of anger. Because of the incident, the banquet was cut short. On the ride home, I said not a word. I ignored Fu Chen's repeated attempts to explain and returned to my own courtyard. I was waiting for news of Lin Royun's miscarriage. Roughly the time it took to burn one incense stick later, a Tao came to report. "Madam, concubine Lin lost the child." "What did the doctor say?" "The doctor isn't aware she was using Jade Beauty Cream. He said the miscarriage was due to drinking while pregnant." I let out a cold laugh. "I see. You may go." I had already reminded Lin Royun not to drink. She didn't listen. Now that it happened, no one would think I had anything to do with it. She had only herself to blame. I waited in the courtyard until late at night. Only then did the physician who treated Lin Royun finally arrive. "How is she?" I asked. "Madam," he replied, "after the miscarriage, the dead fetus needed to be removed. But because she'd been overnourished, the child grew too large. Delivering it caused her excruciating pain, and then she suffered severe hemorrhaging. As per your instructions, I focused on saving her life." I handed him a pouch of silver and dismissed him, satisfied. How could I let Lin Royun die so easily? This was just the beginning. Now that she needed to rest and recover, she'd be quiet for a while. Which meant it was Fu Chen's turn. The next day, I returned to the Lin residence. My younger brother wasn't a general yet, but he had recently gained recognition in court and earned some military merit. When he saw me, confusion turned to rage. "Is Fu Chen bullying you now that he's taken a concubine? I'll go teach him a lesson right now." I stopped him and said, Fu Chen has already had a change of heart. A man who's so quick to change cannot be trusted." He froze. "Are you saying he's planning to harm the Lin family?" I nodded. "We should prepare ourselves." He had always listened to me, and this time was no exception. "What do you want me to do, sister?" Since my rebirth, I had reviewed everything from my past life. I suspected that Fu Chen's betrayal of the Lin family wasn't solely due to Lin Ruoyun's manipulation. The real reason likely lay in political power struggles. The emperor had yet to name a crown prince. Among his sons, 3 were of age: Prince Lin, Prince Rong, and Prince Qi. Prince Qi was idle and not involved in the fight. Only Prince Lin and Prince Rong were actively vying for the throne. Our father disliked political factions and had no enemies at court. The only reason someone would want to eliminate him was that he opposed Prince Lin becoming crown prince. That was probably the real reason Fu Chen framed my father. Now that I knew this, the rest was simple. Adi, in less than half a month, there will be a civilian uprising in Yuzhou. 2 reasons. First, disaster relief funds will be largely missing by the time they reach Yuzhou. Second, severe flooding. In my past life, I'd heard our father furiously denounce Prince Lin for his greed during this incident. I was almost certain the missing funds were linked to Prince Lin. If Prince Lin moved against the Lin family, this may have been part of it. I continued, "You must investigate Prince Lin's connection to the missing relief funds. When the court sends officials to manage the flooding, you need to go with them." Seeing the seriousness on my face, he didn't question how I knew. He just nodded firmly. "I understand, sister." Before leaving, he asked with concern, "Sister, when will you divorce Fu Chen?" I patted his hand and smiled.
"Soon."
Very soon. As soon as half a month had passed, the rebellion in Yuzhou broke out, just as I predicted. And as expected, my brother found solid evidence that Prince Lin had embezzled the disaster relief funds. But he followed my advice and did not report it. Just like in the previous life, the court sent Prince Rong to oversee the flood control efforts. At first, I intended for my brother to observe Prince Rong's conduct, but we soon discovered it was actually Prince Qi who was discreetly working among the officials and soldiers to manage the flood. Prince Qi gave all the credit to Prince Rong. My brother said that during the entire flood relief effort, Prince Qi was dedicated and hardworking. He personally assisted the people, never seeking attention or recognition. Every key solution came from his planning and strategy. With everything now in place, the next step was to persuade father. I stole a batch of letters from Fu Chen's study, correspondence between him and Prince Lin, and took them to father. "Father," I said, "Fu Chen is aligned with Prince Lin. You've always disapproved of Prince Lin, so how can we be sure he won't act against the Lin family?" Father's face changed instantly. He understood the implication right away. "Zier, are you saying we should support Prince Rong to counter Prince Lin?" I shook my head. "No, Prince Qi." I had Adi sound out Prince Qi's character. He's the one truly fit to be crown prince. Right now, he's simply overlooked because of his mother's low status and his lack of powerful allies in court. But if our Lin family supports him, he'll rise, and he'll remember our favor. "Very well," father said. "I'll find a chance to meet him." I clasped his hand. "Father, you and Adi must be extremely careful. Let me be the one to approach Prince Qi. We mustn't let Princes Lin or Rong catch wind of this." Father looked at me with a touch of pride and gently patted my head. "Zier, you've truly grown up." I forced down the ache in my chest and swore to myself I would never let the Lin family fall to ruin like it did in my past life. Prince Qi often visited a tea house called Baixiang Pavilion, where he drank and watched operas. I took a Tao with me to find out when he'd be there next. A Tao went inside to inquire while I waited in the carriage. A moment later, she tapped on the window. Standing behind her was a man dressed as a guard. "This is Zhuing," a Tao introduced, Prince Qi's personal guard. "Madam," he said, "may I ask why you wish to meet my lord?" I smiled faintly. For a woman to request a private meeting with another man, there can only be 2 reasons. Either she does so on behalf of her father or for her husband's sake. Relay my message truthfully. Your prince will understand. Zhuing said nothing, only nodded and left. Within 2 days, I had my audience with Prince Qi. We sat facing each other. I got straight to the point. "Your Highness, would you care to try?" Prince Qi hadn't expected me to be so direct. He hesitated for a moment and said, "But my mother's low status." I cut him off. A ruler must be noble in character. Birth is no excuse. He paused, then raised his cup to me. "Then I drink to you, my lady. To a successful partnership," I replied, lifting my own cup. And just like that, the alliance was sealed. With the Lin family's support, Prince Chi's power steadily grew. But Prince Chi was patient. He didn't rush to make a name for himself at court. Instead, he observed from the shadows, letting Princes Lin and Rome exhaust themselves in open conflict, reaping the benefits from the sidelines. I had my brother turn over the evidence of Prince Lin's embezzlement to Prince Chi. And with that, my true revenge on Fu Qin began. After losing the child, Lin Ruyin fell into despair. She was constantly moody and full of self-pity, often taking out her frustration on Fu Qin. At first, he tried to comfort her. But as time went on, he grew tired of her and turned his attention back to me. I used the very same tricks Lin Ruyin had used in my past life to sow discord between them, worsening their relationship bit by bit. In public, I continued to show concern for Lin Ruyin, treating her with kindness as always. The more I treated her well, the more others thought she was despicable, not only for stealing my husband but for scheming and making me suffer. She became a public enemy. Everyone shamed her, while I remained the kind and forgiving wife who bore it all. I even took her to banquets on the surface to cheer her up and help her make friends. In truth, I let the young ladies of noble families ridicule and insult her as they pleased. Compared to how I was humiliated in my past life, what was this to her? Not only did I take her to banquets, I also took her out for leisure. On one lake outing, I brought Lin Ruyin aboard the pleasure boat. During the trip, the boat suddenly lurched, no one knew what it hit, and people stumbled in all directions. While everyone was distracted, I gave Lin Ruyin a little shove from behind, sending her into the water. It was revenge for the time she shoved me toward a tiger at the palace banquet. Moments after she fell, the boat stabilized. No one suspected a thing. No one knew I'd pushed her. She wouldn't drown. I had already arranged for some local ruffians to rescue her. Everything was unfolding exactly as planned. Being rescued by those men would come at a price, herself. Just like what happened to me in the past life, she would be humiliated without mercy. If she was lucky, she'd survive, dragging her broken body back, just as I had. Lin Ruyin came back alive. She was covered in wounds, her clothes torn and disheveled. Fu Qin and I stood at the gates of the residence, looking down at her from above. So this was how pathetic I must have looked in my past life. Fu Qin said coldly, "You've lost your purity. Why come back at all? Just trying to disgrace me again?" He wanted to throw her out, but I stopped him. She hadn't been to the Bureau of Courtesans yet. How could I let her off so easily? I let her back into the residence to recover, gave her the best medicine. I couldn't let her scar. If she did, the Bureau wouldn't accept her for service. While I fed and clothed Lin Ruyin in luxury, Prince Chi's power steadily expanded. He pretended to ally with Prince Rong while secretly dismantling his base of support, drawing Rong's forces under his own. Prince Chi gave the evidence of Prince Lin's embezzlement to Prince Rong. Rong used it to impeach Prince Lin. At the same time, my brother submitted proof of Prince Lin's years of corruption. Prince Lin's downfall was swift. The emperor stripped him of title and status and exiled him 3,000 miles away. But Prince Chi secretly sent assassins to kill Prince Lin, and the crime was pinned on Prince Rong. Once a ruler begins to doubt, that suspicion never fades. Furious, the emperor accused Prince Rong of murdering his own brother for the throne. Fueled by resentment and egged on by Prince Chi, Prince Rong rebelled. But Prince Rong had overlooked one thing: why Prince Lin had embezzled funds in the first place. He had done it to build a private army. Prince Chi had already turned that army over to the emperor. Pleased, the emperor granted him command and sent him to suppress Prince Rong's rebellion in Qizhou. But none of that concerned me anymore. My focus was Fu Qin. When Prince Lin fell, I submitted Fu Qin's letters to him as evidence and officially divorced him. Fu Chen only admitted to corresponding with Prince Lin but refused to admit any collusion. He swore he had never committed corruption. But he forgot. I had been in that household, quietly gathering evidence all along. I didn't submit all the proof at once. I wanted him to suffer, to feel the same torment my brother endured in the previous life. Only after he was tortured beyond recognition did I hand over the final evidence to my brother. That way, my brother got credit for Fu Chen's conviction, and Fu Chen was thoroughly condemned. His sentence was to be execution by beheading. But I had my father plead for leniency, citing Fu Chen's former status as son-in-law. The sentence was reduced to exile. I wanted him to die slowly, tormented on the road to exile. The night before he was sent away, I visited him in prison. Seeing him bruised and broken brought me immense satisfaction. He screamed like a madman, demanding to know why I hated him so much. I simply smiled and said, "You'll never know why. You'll die not knowing." I had no intention of telling him. Endless confusion and rage, along with the agony of exile, would be his only companions. He would feel nothing but pain until the end. As for Lin Ruoyun, as his concubine, she was implicated. She was sent to the Bureau of Courtesans to suffer the same fate I once did. I made a point of visiting her there. I watched her forced to drink and smile for customers. When she saw me, her mind clearly broken, she fell to her knees and begged me to save her. I laughed coldly, brushed off her hand, and wiped the spot she touched in disgust. "Did you really think I was some saint? All that kindness before was just so I could make your suffering worse later." She stared at me in shock, speechless. I added, "Idiot." Then she finally snapped, shouting, "It was you. You did this to me. You whore." Slap. I struck her across the face, hard. "Revenge must be cruel," I said. "If you're doing well, then I must be doing poorly." I snapped my fingers. A vicious-looking man stepped out from the shadows behind me. I turned and walked away. Her fate was sealed, exactly the same fate I endured in my past life. At last, my vengeance was complete. Prince Rong was defeated, and Prince Qi ascended as the crown prince, just as he had hoped. My brother was promoted early and became a general. My father was granted titles and high office. When everything was settled, I submitted a request to leave the capital, claiming I wanted to retire to Jiangnan. Before I left, Crown Prince Qi requested a meeting at the city gate. He poured me a cup of tea. "Miss Lin, with such talent and foresight, wouldn't it be a waste to retire to a quiet place like Jiangnan?" I glanced at the tea, but didn't touch it. "Your Highness, you may as well speak plainly." He smiled. "Since I became Crown Prince, I've looked back at the details of recent events. Miss Lin, everything you orchestrated wasn't just to help me, was it? The fates of Fu Chen and Lin Ruoyun seemed too perfectly arranged. The fact that he mentioned them meant he had investigated me." I said bluntly, "Your Highness didn't invite me out here just to confirm something so trivial, did you?" He smiled and shook his head. Then he handed me a formal letter of appointment. Not a marriage proposal, but a summons to serve as an advisor. "I've seen your mind and your will, Miss Lin. I want you to stay." "There's never been a female strategist in our court," I said, lifting the teacup and inhaling the fragrance. "This path is risky. I need to consider my own future." "If there's no precedent," he said, "then you'll be the first. And if things ever reach a point where I can no longer protect you, then I will marry you to safeguard your life. But even then, our bond will remain that of ruler and subject." I smiled. "I will serve your Highness, but I have one condition. If one day you no longer need the Lin family, promise me you'll let them go unharmed."
"Deal," he said.
Your subject, Lin Zi, pledges loyalty. The request to leave the capital had been a ruse. I staged it to lure him into making the offer. Just as he said, with my current clarity and strength, it would be a waste to fade into obscurity. But I couldn't be the one to initiate. So I used my departure as bait, and he took it. In my past life, I had lived foolishly, blinded by love for one man, only to meet a tragic end. Now that heaven had granted me a second chance, I would seize it with both hands. Love is fleeting. In this life, I will live for myself. The end.